So good morning all. I'm going to ask if you can hear and see me well.
Yes, we can hear and see you okay.
Thank you. So good morning all. My name is Lucia Hlavata and I'm the trade advisor based at the British Consulate in Bilbao. I would like to welcome you to our first Next Generation EU Funds warm-up session, what we would like to be as a series of sessions focused on different areas. As we are all aware, many countries and industries were heavily affected by the pandemic, as well as they are undergoing a radical transition in order to fight climate change. To face these crises and to emerge even stronger, the EU has introduced the NGEU funds to transform EU economies and societies. The money from NGEU will be invested across several programs and will be distributed to EU countries and beneficiaries through grants and loans, with the goal to build greener, more digital and more resilient Europe. This webinar, organized by the British Embassy in Spain, in collaboration with the Energy Systems Catapult, will provide an overview of the priorities of the Spanish government for deployment of NGEU funds related to the energy transition. We will have our colleague from British Embassy in Madrid, Elena Gutierrez, who is the Economic Public Policy Officer and who follows closely the implementation of the NGEU funds in Spain. And unfortunately, Kieran Botel, who is the Climate and Energy Attaché, has tested positive yesterday, so he can't be with us today. But Elena kindly offered to cover his part on energy transition in Spain. So thank you, Elena. Then we will have Paul Jordan, who is one of the business leaders at the Energy Systems Catapult, and who is helping UK cleantech startups commercialize and develop international opportunities towards a net zero world. He will tell us more on UK support in the transition to net zero. As our key speaker, we have Iberdrola, who are a global energy leader, the #1 producer of wind power, and one of the world's biggest electricity utilities. Iberdrola is also a key player in the energy transition in Spain. And we have Roberto Mariscal, who is their head of innovation. He will present us their plans for projects in the areas such as green hydrogen, innovative renewable energies, sustainable mobility, and much more. What is worth also to mention is our previous collaboration with Iberdrola and ES Catapult. Last year, we organized an event where Iberdrola presented their Global Smart Grids Innovation Hub to UK SMEs, and together we launched a specific innovation challenge. I know that Roberto will tell you more information on it as well. Some information to follow during the webinar. Please, if you are not a speaker, have your camera turned off and mic muted during the presentations. After all the presentations, there will be an open debate and time for Q&A, but feel free to post your questions and comments in the chat from now on, and we will try to answer them in the discussion part. And last but not least, today's session is going to be recorded, but please stay with us as there are many opportunities for collaborations to discover. So thank you all, and now over to Elena.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Lucia, for this opportunity. As Lucia has mentioned, I am Elena Gutierrez, and I am Economics and Public Policy Officer at the Embassy in Madrid. And I will be giving a general introduction on what the Next Generation EU funds are and what they mean for Spain, and also how this interacts with Spain's plans on climate change. As Lucia was saying, it would have been my colleague Kieran Botel providing this, but he's unavailable in the end today, so I will do my best to cover for that. I am going to show a presentation, so if you could bear with me one moment, I'm going to share my screen and have my PowerPoint coming up. Hopefully you can see this in full screen now. So the Next Generation EU funds are the response of the European Union to the COVID-19 crisis to help the member states to recover and for their economies to grow stronger. Each member state has an allocation of the Next Generation EU funds, and this allocation is made up from grants and also from loans. Looking specifically into the grants,
Elena.
Yes.
Sorry, we cannot hear. We cannot see your screen. Can you maybe? We cannot.
Sorry to interrupt. I can see this screen, no problem.
Okay, now we can. Now we can.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. No, thank you. Great. Okay. So yeah, looking into the grants side, Spain is the #1 beneficiary of grants, and they have an allocation of around 20 billion euros that they will receive in between 2021 and 2026. What I cannot do now is move. These around 20 billion euros is going to be deployed according to Spain's recovery plan that they submitted to the European Union and that has been approved. So if we look into the top 10 priority areas within that recovery plan, we can see that the biggest share is for sustainable mobility strategy, the housing and urban rehabilitation, public administration modernization, SME digitalization, the new industrial policy, 5G, digital skills, tourism sector, science and innovation, and renewable energies. So the presence of everything that is related to climate change and energy it's very important. This money is going to be, let's say, implemented or put into use either through calls that can be called by either the central government, the regions or the local authorities, or by PERTEs, which are a sort of public-private partnerships that for strategic projects that are thought to be transformational for the economy. So as you can see, there is a part of the money that is going to be implemented directly by the regions, and among those, the Basque, which is what we are discussing about today. So if we look at the funds that have been assigned to the regions just in 2021, this adds up to more than 11 billion. Now, the thing is that these funds have been allocated through 2021 by the central government. So now these funds are going to be deployed or implemented throughout 2022. So this is what we can look for in the next few months. So as you can see, the Basque Country is among one of the biggest beneficiaries among the regions. And as you can see, if we look to the funds by area, again, the green transition takes at least half of the funds that have been allocated. If we look at slightly closer to the Basque Country, during 2021, they were allocated almost 500 million euros. And the biggest share for that is the green transition with 227 million euros. So that's what we are looking at for the months coming ahead at the Basque Country on green transition. Now, this is the Next Generation EU funds, and this, of course, interacts with Spain's plans on energy transition. So during last year, Spain passed its climate change law and also the National Integrated Energy and Climate Plan. And they have some big figures of headlines, which include having a 42% of renewable share of the final energy use, 74% of renewables in power sector, no new fossil fuel exploitation or production, and having a phase out of petrol or diesel cars by 2040, and a target of 5 million zero emissions vehicles by 2030, as well as phasing out the coal-fired electricity around 2025 and the nuclear in 2035. These sectoral strategies also include some targeted reforms, which include around 60 gigawatts of additional renewable capacity, 4 gigawatts of renewable hydrogen, between 1 and 3 gigabytes of offshore wind, and 12 gigabytes on new flexible storage. So the EU funds that I have been talking about, these will be focused on kickstarting some major investment in all of these areas and making these targets a reality. However, demand for all the technology that is needed for that is expected to continue well beyond the end of the Next Generation EU funds in 2026, and also beyond the magical date of 2030 that it's a milestone for climate energy. So even though a lot of investment is going to be concentrated in the next few years, the demand of all these type of solutions and technology is expected to go well beyond those key dates. I'm going back to me. Hopefully that was useful, and I will pass on back to Lucia.
Thank you, Elena, for a great presentation and also for covering Kieran's part. Very well done. And
Thanks.
now I will pass the word to Paul Jordan from ES Catapult. Paul, are you ready?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Can you see me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everybody. Yes, great to be here, and great to have the opportunity to present to you. So let me also try and share my screen. Hopefully you can see that okay. Does that come through okay?
Yes, maybe try to put it in as a presenter's mode.
There we go. I think there seems to be a bit of a lag on the system.
Yeah, okay.
There we go. Does it come through okay now?
Now, yes, perfect.
Great. Thank you again. Yes, so my name is Paul Jordan. I'm the business leader for Innovator Support and International at the Energy Systems Catapult. So I was asked to just try and give a bit of a flavour of the UK support and activities, as well as just explain a little bit more about what we do at the Energy Systems Catapult. So what I thought would be a good place to start really is to think about the net zero pathways. We at the Energy Systems Catapult recently did a very interesting report called Innovating to Net Zero. And you'll see throughout my presentation, there are a number of links. So a lot of this information is publicly available. So if you do want to try and find out a little bit more, please do. But the Innovating to Net Zero report, we launched that in March 2020. It was actually the last event that I went to just before the first lockdown with COVID, so it was still quite well attended event, but it's quite memorable for that reason. That report basically looked at two scenarios. We looked at what we call clockwork, but also patchwork. So there were two scenarios that we looked at. Clockwork being much more centrally driven, and patchwork being more sort of distributed. But all the scenarios that we ran did show that ultimately there are three major trends when we look at energy vectors. One is increased in electrification, particularly when you start to think around things like domestic heat in the UK, but also hydrogen, where you can see a move coming through in particularly industrial clusters, also potentially some aspects of heating, and also potentially on heavy duty vehicles and things like that. And then district heating. This is where we've actually got clusters of properties where we are providing heating from a central system, and we can see a lot more potential for that. So it's useful to think about that in terms of where the future support is going in the UK, because that is clearly the sort of trends that we're now seeing as we move to net zero. Another good place to also kind of look at where some of the support is coming from, or where it's being targeted, is also when you have a look at things like the 10-point plan, which was launched in 2020 as well, and more recently the energy white paper. And since then, there's also been a number of individual strategies that have come through, for instance, the heat and building strategy, etc. And there's also been an innovation strategy that came out last year. But you can see that there's a number of areas that the UK is looking to push with a number of key targets. So, for example, much higher or much greater increase in offshore wind, and obviously the challenges that will come from that in terms of integration into the system, and the smart systems and flexibility solutions and energy storage that come on the back of that. Similar to what's just been said around Spain, a slightly earlier target, but phasing out petrol and diesel cars by 2030 with 100% zero emission vehicles from 2035. A ban on new build gas boilers from 2025, so really pushing much more increase in heat pumps or other solutions that might come through for low carbon heating. Lots of push around hydrogen. I'll come talk a bit more about that later. Support for more smaller, advanced, distributed nuclear power plants, modular reactors, and then also carbon capture, usage and storage, particularly aligned to industrial clusters. And obviously there's a strong linkage between hydrogen usage and CCUS there. In terms of where the actual support structure comes from, a lot of this is driven by by an institution called UK Research and Innovation, and the government has set up ambitious targets to increase total investment in R&D to 2.4% of GDP by 2027. It is an ambitious target, but a lot of moves to push that in that direction. UKRI is a grouping of 7 of the research councils, but also Research England, which supports a lot on the skills side and links very closely with a lot of the devolved administrations as well, with Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and then also Innovate UK. Now, Innovate UK is where we sit as the Catapult Network. So the Catapult Network sits under Innovate UK, and I'll explain a bit more about catapults. But Innovate UK is where a lot of the innovation collaboration happens. And if you get a chance to have a look at the innovation strategy that was launched last year, you can start to see where Innovate UK will be focusing a lot of their attention. So they work a lot with small businesses, provide R&D grants and funding support. They also have a couple of groups in there, one called Innovate UK Edge, which starts to look at other support for businesses and has a regional approach, and then KTN, which is again helps with a lot of the sort of collaboration and knowledge sharing, and also there's a strong international linkage on all those fronts as well. We also had a report that we did not too long ago, looking at the West Midlands, and this was actually a report that was looking at the need for a physical incubator in energy, given that there isn't really one that a dedicated one to energy in the UK, and we started to map out what the support programs were in different aspects, whether that was specialist SME support, so that's SMEs is small and medium enterprises, as well as through things like the ICF, which is the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, that again sits under Innovate UK. And again, you get that if you have a look at that, it'll give you again a little bit of an insight into where the different programs are that are promoting demonstration projects and also fostering collaboration both domestically and internationally. I'm just going to go through a couple of examples there. One is this was an Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund called Prospering from the Energy Revolution, called PIFA. Now, PIFA is a £100 million programme that it sits under UKRI, delivered by Innovate UK, and it's really looking at smart local energy systems. And what we mean by that is not only looking at one individual energy vector, so it might be looking at not just sort of heat or power, it's looking at the interconnection of those and the interoperability of those energy vectors, but also how do you integrate that into the infrastructure and the community and the people, and really start to look at the mix of the technical challenges, but also the commercial and behavioural challenges, and how do you look at developing new smart local energy systems that are fit for the future, and promoting new designs for those future systems. There were 3 large projects which again are worth having a look at. So Energy Superhub Oxford, Reflex Orkney off the north coast of Scotland, and Local Energy Oxfordshire, all of which have slightly different aspects to them, but they are representing what the future energy system might look like and how that might be structured, and some really good insights coming out of that. We as the Energy Systems Catapult have a role to sort of help manage those and capture the learning and share the insight. Transport, again, a big area. I talked about the ban on diesel and petrol projects, but there's a lot of work that needs but there's a lot of work that needs to happen on the infrastructure side. We help manage the electric vehicle energy task force, which has been running for a few years now, and some really great recommendations coming out from that around how you perhaps have smart charging as an opt-out rather than an opt-in, so it becomes a default position. But we've also done work around decarbonising of road freight, and also there's an interesting program there called Consumers, Vehicles and Energy Integration, which looked at, again, the behavioural side and how people utilise different charging infrastructure, whether that's domestic or perhaps on motorways, and therefore what might be the most appropriate charging structure for different applications and for different types of people and usage profiles. So again, some useful insight that's coming out of there, and a lot of that work is then developing into future support programs and funding for demonstration activities. Hydrogen, as I said, a big activity for the UK. The map on the right here just gives a flavour for what the future might look like in terms of the number of projects. A lot linked into some of the offshore wind activities, because there's a lot of activity in the North Sea in particular, and you can see some of the clusters that are happening around that. A push to there will be a hydrogen sector development action plan, which we expect to see soon, and you can see the ramp up in terms of what the expectation is around what that could be worth to the UK economy. If you look at that 900 million in 2030, that increases to 13 billion by 2050, so a significant step up there. And you can see the sort of milestones that the UK is trying to achieve there, with things like the hydrogen neighbourhood trial, with then moving towards a pilot hydrogen town by 2030. So huge activity there, as there is with many other countries looking into hydrogen. I'm just conscious I'm on time and don't want to use up too much of the slot, but I thought it'd be worth just talking a little bit about the Catapult network now. So the Catapults are research and technology organisations that were really set up to have deep expertise in particular areas in order to try and unblock the barriers to innovation and also help to grow the market, and through that be able to capture the opportunities for the UK. So there are 9 catapults. They're all listed there, ranging from energy systems but through to offshore renewables, high value manufacturing, some of the life sciences as well. And we bridge that gap between different stakeholders in the sector. So we do get support from government, but at the same time, we're independent private businesses, not for profit, that then can play that sort of facilitation role in between academia, government, and industry, and bring forward, really great collaborations, but with deep technical expertise and commercial expertise on top. The Energy Systems Catapult, where I sit, we're over 200 innovation experts, headquartered in Birmingham. We focus principally on how different parts of the energy system come together, and we do that through what we call taking a whole system view. And this just tries to illustrate the range of different things that we get involved in. So all of this we support, but it's really about how do these aspects of the future energy system come together. So we do work around the networks. We do a lot of work around thinking about the consumer. So we have a consumer insights team that really gets into the deep understanding of consumer behavior and how future energy propositions might develop, like energy as a service. Also how the different energy vectors might interlink, electricity, heat, transport. But then also, how do you deal with the legacy systems? How do you deal with the future business models and market structures that need to come through? And then how does that resolve into changes in policy and regulation? So that's what we term a whole system, and we think that's absolutely critical to unlock innovation. And you see that a lot of the innovation support in the UK is now moving forward with very much a whole system approach in mind. Last couple of slides. So one of the ways in which we do this to support innovators particularly, and what my team look after is our energy launchpad. This is an incubator, a virtual incubator and accelerator that links our support activities around consumer insight, system integration, digital and data, etc., alongside other support providers, so other experts, test facilities, other incubators, accelerators in other areas. We bring that all together to provide support to innovators, and we provide hands-on support through our incubation managers to have a deep understanding of their commercialization needs and then tailor the support to help them accelerate their development. We've been running now for 3 years, excellent success, and you know, we're looking to, well, we are growing every year. We're doing more and more and working with more and more startup businesses, so it's really great to see that people are valuing the support that we are providing. Lastly, just a couple of things that might be useful to people as well is that we also do a lot of work to map the UK supply chain, and part of this is to also enable collaboration and help people identify potential partners. So we've looked at things like digital energy, smart heating and cooling, electric vehicle infrastructure and hydrogen. We've got landscapes in all of those areas. It's all freely accessible through our Energy Launchpad online portal. You can register on there, and that's a great way to see where the innovation connects together, but also, as I say, if you're trying to identify potential partners and collaboration opportunities, it's a really useful resource. So hopefully, I appreciate that was a very rapid run through different aspects of what's happening in the UK, and I probably haven't done it anywhere near enough justice to all the great work that's going on, but hopefully it gives you a little bit of an insight into what we're doing, and very happy to answer any questions later. So back to you, Lucia.
Thank you, Paul, for a great presentation. I think it gave us really good insight to understand different pathways to net zero and what ES Catapult and UK is doing to support this transition. I would like to remind people to put, or please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will try to answer them after the last presentation that we held. So now over to Roberto from Iberdrola to tell us more about your plans.
Morning, everyone. Well, my name is Roberto Mariscal. I'm head of innovation at Iberdrola Spain. Thank you so much, Lucia and the British Embassy team in Spain for organizing this meeting. Congrats, Elena, for your presentation about the recovery plan here in Spain. I'm sure there will be more questions later, so we can answer them. And congrats also to you, Paul, because well, Catapult is a reference all over Europe. We collaborate with you, and I'm sure we will have more chances in the future. Of course, thank you to all of you attending this event. Let me say hello to our UK team from Scottish Power, are also joining this event. Tom Williamson, leading our innovation at the Scottish Power, and also Craig Bradley. So we are here to help you, and my objective today is to share with you our vision about the future and to share with you areas where we can collaborate with you within the recovery plan in Spain or not. But at the end, the important issue is to move forward innovation and accelerate the energy transition. So a quick picture to show where we are in the energy transition, which is green and is digital. Just 2 steps. First step is the carbon electricity decarbonization. We have the technology, renewables are competitive, and that's why in this decade in Spain, solar PV capacity will multiply per 6. Onshore wind will multiply per 2, will double its installed capacity. And before 2030, we will get more than 75% of our electricity from sun, wind, and water. And that's something that will happen. The challenge is developing and accelerating the deployment of that technologies. In the middle of the picture, we have the smart grids. The smart grids are a key area. They are the platform that connects everything and that helps to introduce the renewables into the demand side. And the second step in the energy transition is the electrification of the demand. Of course, the future will be electric in the car industry. We will move our cars with green and affordable energy, but also our buses or trucks. As Paul said, there is a challenge regarding the heating buildings, and electricity can help there a lot. And the other area is decarbonizing industrial processes where electricity can play a role there. And if it's not possible, green hydrogen is the solution. In that field, we need still development of the technology, but during this decade, I'm sure we will get very good results and we will deliver very, very good projects. In fact, the objectives for 2030 are very ambitious, and we need to start now. Last year, wind power was the first source of electricity in Spain, with 24% of the generation. The renewable technologies achieve 48% of the structure. And if you include the 20% of nuclear, we can talk about a high free emissions structure for generating electricity. As I said, the challenge is to develop and build the projects. Iberdrola installed 2 gigas during the COVID, 1.5 gigas of PV solar, and the rest of wind. We are installing now wind turbines of 6 megawatts. Technology is here, and well, we just need to deploy as fast as possible to achieve faster the results we are looking for. There is still room for innovation, of course, regarding digitalization and regarding, for example, biodiversity, how we can engage the communities where we build that power plants to engage them. Regarding offshore wind power, of course, it is one of the main drivers for growth for Iberdrola, but well, in Spain, our only option is floating wind farms, so we are moving too slow. So my commentary is that if you want to do business around offshore wind, stay in UK. If you want to develop R&D projects or demonstrator projects, and if you want to visit the Canary Island, I'm sure there is room for collaboration because, well, the recovery plan in Spain includes 200 million euros to demonstrate and validate technology during this period. Smart grids, really important business for the utilities. It is a regulated business. For Iberdrola, it represents 50% of the EBITDA, and it is the platform that integrates the renewable energy, integrates the decentralized generation, helps to introduce the electric vehicle, the self-consumption. So by the flexibility, bidirectional flux of electricity, a lot of challenges. That's why last year we inaugurated the Global Smart Grids Innovation Hub in Bilbao. We are collaborating, for example, with Catapult, and I'm sure we will do it again in the future. And there is a big opportunity to collaborate in this area. The recovery plan of Spain includes 500 million euros for the distribution system operations. So this is an area where we will invest more, and I'm sure we can collaborate if there is options regarding innovation and digitalization. If we talk about the electric vehicle, the government of Spain is trying to fix industry here in Spain and fix the whole value chain. That's why they are promoting battery factories. So they have 3 billion to help the industry to develop that full value chain here in Spain. And there is an additional billion euros to develop charging infrastructure. That's where we are, helping our customers and helping the citizens to move free in the whole country with charging infrastructure. At the end, the TCOs of the owners are better each year, and electric vehicle is betting our expectation each year. So, well, I'm sure it will increase even more faster in the next year. Paul talked also about it, is hitting the electrification. In the recovery plan, there are a lot of subsidies that goes directly to the final customers in order to remove their homes, improve their windows and insulation of their buildings. But also it is important to change the fuel, because with the heat pump technology, you can remove gas and use electricity with better efficiency. You can save up to 70% of your energy bill, and even more if you include self-consumption and technologies like that. At the end, the customer is in the center. A lot of options to choose regarding electrification, the electric mobility, heating their buildings, having self-consumption, and well manage all that information with different digital technologies and artificial intelligence applications. So they can really get their bed from electrification. In the recovery plan in Spain, as I told, there are a lot of subsidies to the customers to move towards electrification. And here it's green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is one hot topic, I will say, all over Europe, but all over the world. We do believe that with local renewable generation and with the value chain of the electrolyzer, we can deliver very good results in different industries that are more complicated to electrificate. And in that sense, we are moving forward projects in the fertilizers area, in the steel area, and in the methanol area. We have an agreement with Cummins, a manufacturer of electrolyzers that will manufacture that technology here in Spain. And we are constructing one project of 20 megawatts in Puerto Llano for a customer called Fertiberia. So we will deliver the first green hydrogen this March. The project is just 20 megawatts, but the whole project is 1.5 billion euros because it includes 8 megawatts of electrolyzers. It is the same with green steel. We have big plans, big projects, 2.3 billion euros to develop green steel here in Spain. And the same with green methanol. We have a project in Galicia for turning methanol green. The key for all those projects is to have local renewable generation, because if you split the cost of the final products, electricity is a big part of it. And in that sense, you can add value if your energy is cheap. Regarding the electrolyzer, there is still room for innovation and improvements. But at the end, there are a lot of sectors that will really move into a more sustainable business. In the recovery plan in Spain, there are 1.5 billion euros for that area. The first calls will start soon. The point is that most of those calls are just financing a small project, just to 20 megawatts of electrolyzers. So we will see in the future if there is room for big projects within the recovery plan or not. And this is the last slide, so we can have a good chat after the presentations. I like to finish with it because every year we exceed our expectations and we expand the boundaries of electrification. In the past, we were discussing about cars, about buses. Now the debate is about trucks. Heavy transport will be electric, will be hydrogen the solutions. And at the end, the boundaries of electrification are increasing. So we are happy to hear that, because as you have seen, electricity can be green and can be affordable. So, well, hope the future is electric. We will work for that, and it will be a pleasure if we can collaborate with you to make that green future together. Thank you so much. I'm happy to answer all the questions you have and to connect with you.
Thank you, Roberto, for the great presentations. I can see that we have a couple of questions already in the chat. But I would like to start maybe asking some questions related to NGEU. So could you tell us what are the most important projects for Iberdrola connected to NGEU or inside the NGEU funds?
Thank you, Lucia. Well, I think, of course, hydrogen is a hot topic, because when we talk about renewables are competitive. We don't need subsidies to develop the technology, because technology is already here. Instead, if you talk about hydrogen, I think that we are all thinking about how we can make a business model happen to make that all of that a reality. Now, green hydrogen is more expensive than gray hydrogen. So there are different ways to change that. One is improving the technology, and we will do it with the collaboration of the manufacturers of electrolyzers, also the industry. Other solution is having subsidies to start with that projects, and other solution is to change the business model. So we are working in all that areas to make those projects a reality. We Iberdrola, we started a real project and we deliver it. We will deliver green hydrogen in March of this year, 20 megawatt electrolyzer power facility. So the idea is that with the next generation funds, we can really make big investment in big clusters of hydrogen, and well, we need to see how this move forward, because this is something that is good to share with the audience. All the projects within the next generation EU funds are inside the European framework of aids. So at the end, the biggest subsidy that a company can receive for one project is 20 million, 30 million euros. And if you talk about billions, and our projects are billions, is not enough for moving that project forwards. That's why we are participating in the process of IPCEIs, the important projects of common interest, where other European companies are also participating. And that process will be very interesting because it can open us to really develop a huge project. So far, the projects are smaller. And other areas, of course, electromobility is a key area, and innovation. We don't have as good opportunities in offshore as we expected, just 200 million. So if you take a look at what is in over the world, we think we are missing an opportunity here in Spain, but of course we have an opportunity to develop R&D projects in the Canary Island, which is not a bad plan.
Thank you, Roberto. Maybe a follow-up question. Are you leading any of the consortia for these projects?
Of course, Lucia. All the projects are in collaboration with suppliers and providers and universities. So we are open to collaborate. The process of the Next Generation EU funds has not started yet. Last year, the government started with smaller initiatives, a smaller initiative like giving subsidies to the charging points or giving subsidies to the heat pumps. But the big projects are still waiting for the promotion. So in that sense, of course, we are open to identify good partners and see if we can collaborate. We are really interested in lowering the cost of the technology that we think are the future. So we can't do it alone. We need to do it in collaboration.
Thank you, Roberto. And maybe a last question from my side. So also a follow-up question on this, how a UK company can participate on projects with Iberdrola? Or what are the steps?
Well, of course, you do have my contact and also the contact of my colleagues, Tom and Craig. Maybe Tom and Craig, if you don't mind, Lucia can also say hello to the audience because we are open to receive ideas. Hi, Craig, pleased to meet you again. And hi, Tom. So I think the whole Iberdrola team is open to move ideas forward because we can help the UK companies not only with the recovery funds in Spain, but also in UK we are moving very good projects ahead and globally. So if you want to connect with us, I think that we all, the three, can help the UK companies. Tom, Craig?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can share our contact details through Lucia, and yeah, we'll absolutely welcome any contact from anyone. And our doors are open for collaboration in the innovation space. Absolutely.
Thank you, Tom and Craig. And thank you, Roberto, for answering my questions. We can now move to the questions from the chat. I can see the first question is what support and expertise from Scotland be accepted within Spain and its various sectors. We have our colleague from the economic team here, Edward. So if you want to answer it directly, it would be grateful.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Edward Corcoran. I'm the Economic Attaché here in Madrid, working closely with Elena and, of course, with Lucia. Great presentations this morning, a real pleasure to have heard so much work going on, particularly from Iberdrola in this area. So I think the first thing to highlight is that the Spain's recovery funds are absolutely open to a whole wide range of firms. The Spanish government has been clear that they would like to leverage the expertise that they can get, including that provided from UK firms. This will be really integral to ensuring that Spain is able to bring the right technology to bear on many of the challenges that that Spain is facing, just as the UK is facing. Really important to highlight, of course, that as part of how firms can get involved, some of the public procurement exercises will have certain restrictions in place. So some of them which have already been published do require firms to be registered within the EU and to offer services within the EU. So it will be really important for firms to analyse the public procurement sort of calls or tenders that come out in the coming weeks and months, particularly, of course, in the energy space, and to see what the requirements are. Now, that's not to say, of course, that that necessarily needs to be a limiting factor. Where you have the opportunity to work with other firms which might themselves be bidding on tenders, for example, like Iberdrola, there might be slightly different requirements in place. For example, you might be able to be a supplier directly to a firm, perhaps like Iberdrola, perhaps Roberto might like to comment on this, or indeed to other firms which are bidding and taking part directly in the tenders, and therefore have slightly different requirements. So to sum up, yes, you're extremely welcome. The Spanish government has flagged that they'd like to take advantage of the expertise that exists, including outside of Spain, but really important to pay attention to the detail. And of course, we at DIT and others are here to help support those processes should you be looking to move into Spain for the first time.
Thanks, Edward, for the clear message. I don't know if Roberto has any comments.
Completely agree with Edward's answer. Fantastic. And we are open to talent and to expertise from all over the world. And as Edward said, now the important issue is to have a look at the final documents that will regulate the specific tenders. And we still don't know it. We are also waiting for that because, for example, well, we are talking about green hydrogen for 2 years, and the government is talking a lot about the green hydrogen for 2 years. There is 1.5 billion euros, which is not bad to start and to move forward, but we haven't had any public tender yet, okay? The first 2 tenders will be hopefully during this week or next week. So in that moment, we will see the details and we will see how we can make the consortiums and how we can really prepare the proposals, and because we want to move forward the projects, and I'm sure there will be good opportunities.
Thanks, Roberto. Fingers crossed, so we hear more information on the project. Let's take next question in the chat, and it is: will Iberdrola implement their Spanish energy transition to all their overseas companies as a blueprint for a roadmap?
Yes, of course. Well, we are a global company and we have a common vision of the future. Well, in fact, in UK, our generation is now net zero, not in Spain yet. So, well, we think that we started the energy transition 20 years ago when we started investing in renewables and smart grids. So now that seems to be easy, okay, the decarbonization of the electricity. And the challenge for this decade is electrifying the demand, because there were also a debate regarding electromobility, but now there is no debate. All the manufacturers are betting for electric vehicles. So, well, I'm sure that with the right technology, we can achieve competitiveness and at the same time more sustainability. And I think we are delivering the model for 20 years. So I think it's a good path to move forward.
Thank you, Roberto. Now, having heard what Roberto said, questions for Paul. Which areas do you think UK companies might be well placed to offer innovative solutions to Iberdrola, given your knowledge of the overall ecosystem in the UK?
I think on a number of fronts. I think coming back to Roberto's point around the difference between the amount of activity that's happened on the supply and demand side, I do think there are a lot more activities, or well, there's a lot more challenges on the demand side, because historically there has been a lot of support on the supply side. You can see the developments that's happened with renewable energy, etc. But there are really significant challenges that are now appearing on the demand side, with the increase of penetration of electric vehicles, distributed energy systems, and so that's where I think there's a lot of activity in the UK, with a lot of smart energy solutions coming forward, thinking around that, you know, digitalization, thinking around how do you provide different commercial propositions, how do you think about some of the challenges on the distributed aspects of the network. You know, if you've got changes of power quality at the distribution end, you know, if there's voltage drop, if there's a need for frequency response, if the need for capacity and energy storage around capacity challenges. So whilst I think there's opportunities across the board, I think particularly on the demand side is, I think, where there's a lot of UK activity that I think a lot of other countries and places like Spain could really benefit from. And I know Scottish Power are already very active in this space as well, collaborating with a lot of UK companies on some of these challenges through their distribution arm. So that's maybe one area. And you know, Roberto also mentioned about hydrogen. Again, a lot of activity in hydrogen. I mentioned about all the developments in the UK. So areas like that as well, I think, you know, potential collaboration opportunities around hydrogen, both on production, storage, but also distribution and usage. So there's lots of aspects of the hydrogen value chain and different activities that are happening in different spaces. So yeah, lots of areas, I think, where the UK supply chain could work with Spain for sure.
Thank you, Paul. So, given what Paul just said about demand, we have a question related to this in the chat. Are there network congestions concerns due to the increase of renewables, electric vehicles, issues with connected are fast enough? Maybe if you can comment on it, Roberto, or Paul, as you prefer.
Yeah, sure. I can give initial thoughts on that. Definitely. I mean, one of the things that happens with well, I'll separate both those. I mean, from a renewables perspective, particularly in the UK, a lot of the renewable supply tends to be at the end of the network. So you know, there are always challenges there in terms of how do you get the renewable energy into the system. And you can see with places like Orkney, there's already activity there looking at how do you have a more clever way of managing the demand and supply profile to manage the network. And there's also innovation coming through with dynamic overhead lines. So, you know, when the wind's blowing, the lines are cooler, so you can get more capacity down the lines, things like that. And so there is that effect, but on the demand side, we're also starting to see clustering of activity. So, for instance, electric vehicles, you might tend to get an area of a town that might move towards getting electric vehicles first. So that could result in demand on the system from that side. Likewise, with higher penetration of solar power, rooftop solar, things like that. And in the future, if we start to see electrification of heat, which is even higher demand, then of course, again, you can start getting some clustering effects around that on the network, and that will need to be managed carefully. And as I say, there are lots of innovations that are coming through to think about that. Is it fast enough? Maybe that is a question for Roberto or the guys from Scottish Power. You know, it seems to be moving pretty quickly, but whether it's fast enough, I don't know.
I think your answer was fantastic, Paul, and I think we are prepared for what is happening right now, and we need to still invest more to have a strong, smart network. So with technology and digitalization, this is something that it is easy for us because I remember when renewables started to be something relevant in the mix of electricity, the discussions were the same. Ooh, 10% of renewables, that's high, and now we have 47% of renewables here in Spain last year. So I think that it is a challenge that the network can manage, and of course we are open to innovation there because there are a lot of challenges. So let address them, but I think it's not a problem at all.
Thank you, Roberto, for your answer, and Paul. I think we came to the end of the questions in the chat. I don't know if somebody would like to ask questions directly or comment on any topic. I can see that Iberdrola shared their contact details, so please feel free to reach out directly to them. Also, we, the IT team or British Embassy in Spain, we are here to help make connections and get the conversations going. And I think if there are not any more questions or comments, I would like to give thanks to all the speakers. Okay, one more question. Will Iberdrola and Scottish Power look to build their own fueling stations in the ports near their offshore wind farms? Roberto?
Well, we will have charging points all over the geography to move freely, but it's true that the ports are good locations for example, producing green steel or green ammonia, so you can export that valuable products. So if you had cheap energy, green and cheap energy, you can have very valuable products and be very competitive. That's why in UK with offshore wind, it is a real bet for a good future, and here in Spain with the sun. So well, being near a port is very interesting now. Maybe Tom, you can complement or Craig what is happening in the UK too.
Sure, Roberto. I think the question then followed up to say they were talking about hydrogen fueling stations, and I don't think we would rule that potential out for Iberdrola Scottish Power to do that directly, but I would say in the first instance these projects will be delivered by a collaborative team. So there will be existing people with expertise in that area, and they will most likely form part of a consortium that will deliver a hydrogen project and potentially deliver the fueling element, because we recognise we're not experts in this world at the moment. We hope to be one day, but certainly it will be delivered as part of a consortium in the first instance anyway.
In fact, we are delivering green hydrogen for buses in Barcelona. We are now delivering it. But well, this is a topic to discuss with Paul and the rest of the audience, if heavy transport will be electric or with hydrogen. So far, we have both options, but in the future, I have one one candidate, and my last slide so what I'm thinking about.
Thank you, Roberto and Craig, for your comments. I think we reached the end of the questions, and so I would like to thank all the speakers, the Energy System Catapult, and colleagues who helped to promote this event, and also all the participants. We will have the recording, which will be shared after the session, and also the we can make any introductions, connections. Our intention is to get the conversation going, also to find as many collaborations as possible in the relevant areas. So this is all from us today, and we look forward to seeing you, some of you, again in our next session. So thank you all and have a good day.